Hello, Year 8. Today we're looking at distance time graphs. So what this requires is for us to be able to interpret these graphs to answer questions, and also there's a little bit of rates calculation. So that's how that ties in. We're going to be looking at speed, which is distance over time, distance per time, which is a rate. So let's look at this first example here. So each of the straight line segments drawn on the graphs represent a trip made by a salesperson. Okay, so we've got these different salespersons who are traveling to and from the office. And what we need to do for each trip is we need to answer these questions: the time taken, the distance traveled, and then the speed. So let's look at trip A first. We've got to think about the time taken. So we start for trip A at 7 a.m. And then each of these grid lines is 1 hour. You can see there's 8 a.m. missing, and then it goes to 9, and it'll be 10, 11, 12, 1, etc. So the time taken, we go from 7, and then on the horizontal axis, we end at 10. So it's a 3-hour trip. The distance that we've traveled, we started 100 kilometers from the office, and then we ended up 400 kilometers from the office. So that means the distance we traveled is going to be 400 minus 100, which is 300 kilometers. Okay, and then finally, the speed in which we traveled is simply the distance over the time, which equals 100 kilometers per hour. Okay, for B here, we start at 10 o'clock. We can see if we go down to our axes here, we start at 10, we finish at 2. So from 10 to 12, that's 2 hours. From 12 to 2, that's 2 hours. So it's 4 hours in total. The distance that we traveled is 200 to 400, so it's 200 kilometers in total. And so then the speed is going to be 50 kilometers per hour. And then finally, for our third trip, we started at 9 a.m. and then we finished at 2 a.m. So 9 to 12 is 3 hours plus another 2, so it's 5 hours in total. The distance that we traveled was 400 kilometers back to the office, so 400. Okay, so our speed will be 400 divided by 5, which is 80 kilometers per hour. Now you'll notice if we look at the steepness or the gradient of these different lines, the one with the highest speed is the steepest line. So these distance time graphs kind of give us an indication of how fast something is going based on the steepness of that line. Okay, let's look at this last example. I've added a few extra questions at the bottom. Firstly, we've got a motorist going from town A to B, and we've got distance from town A. What's the meaning of the horizontal sections? So we're going to look at these sections here and ask ourselves, what does that mean? Those horizontal sections means we're not moving away from town A at all, so not moving. Or you could say stationary, or you could say stopping for a rest, or filling up for fuel, or whatever it might be. Okay, how many times did the motorist stop? The motorist stopped 2 times. And then when did the motorist stop and for how long? So at 9 a.m. for 1 hour, because he started again at 10 a.m. and then at 11:30 for half an hour. That's that second stop. You can see that's about half an hour from 11:30 to 12. Okay, now I've added these extra questions here. D, what was the motorist speed from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m.? So we're just looking at this part of the section. We've got to work out how far we traveled. So it was 150 kilometers. We've got to think about how long it took. It was 2 hours. So the speed is going to be 75 kilometers per hour. For question E, what was the motorist's average speed? So to do the average speed, we've got to work out the total time and the total distance of the trip. So the total distance was 400 kilometers. And then the total time was from 7 a.m. to 2, which is 5 plus 7. 5 plus 2, sorry, which is 7 hours in total. So we just whip out our calculator. 400 divided by 7, whoops, gives us 57.1. We'll just go to 1 decimal place. 57.1 kilometers per hour, and that's to 1 decimal place. Okay, so that's how we can read distance time graphs and interpret them, and as well calculate speeds as a rate. Good luck with the questions today. See you in the next video, and have a good weekend.